Welcome to the MSJC Internet Authoring Videocast.
In this video, you'll be learning how to complete Review Assignment 8. So here we are in the textbook reviewing the instructions for Review Assignment 8. Starting with Step 1, it asks us to open up our HTML editor. And in the HTML editor, we're going to open up the files cp_astaire_txt.html, cp_media2_txt.css, and cp_animate2_txt.css. And those are in the Review Assignment 8 folder. So we'll switch over to Visual Studio now. And you can see I've got the CSIS 525 folder opened as the root folder. And I've got the RA8 folder open here. So we can open up our animate2 txt file, our astaire txt HTML file. We'll also need to open up this captions2_txt VTT file, which will be for the captioning that we set up. And then this style sheet here, the cp_media2_txt.css file. So to start with, we're just going to put in our name and date here. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to save this file without the txt. So we'll go ahead and do File, Save As. And just get rid of that txt that we have there. And the underscore. Make sure we've got the period. And the .css at the end there. We'll go ahead and save that. Then we'll just go to the HTML file. Go ahead and paste our author and date information there and do a Save As. Again, just removing that _txt from the file name, clicking on the Save button. And then the last one here is the cp_animate2 txt CSS file. Again, just pasting in the author and date info. And then doing a File Save As. And getting rid of that _txt from the file name and saving it. So now that we've made those modifications, we can come over to this other one here too and do a Save As, get rid of the _txt. We're not going to add the name and author information in here though. Okay, so that makes it so all our files are ready to be edited. Back to the instructions now. In step 2, we're going to the HTML file in our editor. We're going to insert a link to the two style sheets, so the media2 CSS and the animate2 CSS file. And then we'll take a little bit of time to study the contents and the structure of the document. So here's our HTML file. We'll just drag and drop our two CSS files in here now, the ones that we've removed the txt, the _txt, and just stick them in the head section here. So we'll put that underneath the previous links, the base2 style sheet and the styles2 style sheet, which is already done for us. And then we want to add the media2 as well. Okay, just do Control S to save that change. Now let's take a look at the structure of this document here. You can see that we have a section and then an article, and it's got an H1 heading in there, and then it has this biography of Fred Astaire. And then underneath of that, there's a div that's ID'd as filmography. And so what we'll eventually be doing here is we're just going to make this a scrolling list of items on the screen. You can see this is the box right here, the filmography, and then the list of the Fred Astaire films. And then further down, you'll see we have a Listen Up section. So that's this aside right here with the H1 Listen Up. We're going to add an audio element in there. Then underneath of that we have another aside, and it's got an H1 that has the content of in focus. We're going to add a video in there, and then we'll add the captioning to that video. And then up here at the very top you'll see we have a header element that has this cinema penguin image, and then we have a nav element that's classed as horizontal and ID'd as top links, and we're going to apply some CSS animation to these links. So back to the instructions now. Step 3, we're going to scroll down to the aside element that is titled Listen Up, and directly after the introductory paragraph there we're going to insert an audio clip, and it will have the audio controls displayed in the browser, and we'll add 2 possible source files to that audio element. We'll have the audio clip CP Song MP3, and the other audio clip is CP Song.ogg. So just 2 different formats there. And we also need to identify the MIME type when we're adding those to the audio element. And then at the bottom of the audio element, if the browser doesn't support HTML5 audio, we want to be able to display some text here in a paragraph that just reads, upgrade your browser to HTML5. Okay, so we're back into the HTML code now in Visual Studio. We're going to scroll down to the Listen Up aside element here. And so right after this paragraph that contains a citation there, we're going to go ahead and add our audio element. And we want the audio element to display controls, so we'll add that attribute. And then we need to add our 2 clips using the source element. So we'll add an src attribute that's going to be equal to cp_song.mp3. The type attribute is going to have a value of audio/mp3. And source is a self-closing tag. Now we'll add our second source, the src attribute. And that file is going to be cp_song.ogg. And its type is going to be audio/ogg. And then self-close it. So that's all we need to do for the audio element. Let's go ahead and preview this in our browser. So we click the play button, and there we have the song. So the reason that we had 2 different sources there is that it might be that the web browser, or actually the system that the user was viewing our page on, wasn't able to play an MP3 file. And so if that's not a possibility, then the web browser will select the OGG file and see if the system can play that particular file format. Pretty much all modern operating system and browsers, they're able to play the MP3s in the OGG. But just realize that the audio playback is dependent on the operating system and what playback media types it supports. So we'll go ahead now and switch back to the instructions. And we did have to add that message underneath. We didn't do that yet. So let's go back to Visual Studio. And inside of the audio element, we add the paragraph that reads, upgrade your browser to HTML5. So if neither of those files, the MP3 or the OGG, were playable within the browser that was viewing our page, then it would be the paragraph text that would show up. So back to the instructions. Next we're going to, in step 4, scroll down to the aside element that's titled In Focus. And after the introductory paragraph, insert the video clip with video controls enabled. We'll also want to display the poster image, which is going to be cp_poster.png. We'll add two possible sources to the video, and the clips are cp_hatrack.mp4 and cp_hatrack.webm. We'll also include the MIME type for each of those clips, and then again we'll add that text at the bottom of the video element in case the viewer doesn't have an appropriate browser to be able to view the video. And so just upgrade your browser to HTML5. So here's the aside with the in focus. We're going after the paragraph text here. Going to add the video element with controls. And again, we'll add our source elements. Source attribute is going to be on the first one, cp_hatrack.mp4. Its type then is going to be video mp4. And that's a self-closer, the source element. And then our next source with this src attribute is going to be cp_hatrack.webm. Type there is then video/webm. Self-closing. And we add that paragraph text. Upgrade your browser to HTML5. Looks like I got a typo there. You might have noticed that I had a red squigglies. In fact, I've got them up here too, but in that particular case, that was a typo, and the reason that the red squiggly showed up is I do have a spelling checker plugin that I've added into Visual Studio here. So let's go ahead and see that the video is working here. We'll go ahead and save that. Go back to the web browser. Switch back to our HTML file. Refresh it. And we do now see the video. Let's see if we can play the video and hear it. And it does play, and we can hear it. Back to our instructions. Step 5 now, directly after the two video sources in the video element that we created in the last step, we want to insert a caption track using the captions that we'll specify in the file cp_captions2.vtt file. And we'll give the captions track the label movie captions and set it as the default track for the video clip. So our track element's actually going to go before that paragraph that has the upgrade your browser to HTML5 reference. So it's a track element. You set the kind equal to captions. The label is movie captions. And then the source is the file name cp_captions2.vtt. And we make that the default caption file. Control S to save that change. Up to step 6 now. After saving the changes, it says to open up the cp_caption2.vtt file in our editor. And then we'll add an initial line to the text file indicating that this file is in a web VTT format. And once we've done that, you'll see in step 7 here, we start adding the track cues then into that file. So here's the CP captions2 VTT file. So we start out here by identifying that it's a web VTT file. Do that in all caps. Step 7 now, we're going to add the following track cues into this VTT file. We'll have a title cue that appears at 1/2 second in and runs till the 5-second mark within the video. So that's the interval. It'll contain the text, the hat rack dance. It'll be enclosed in a class tag that will have the name title. We'll set the line and align attributes for caption to be 10% down as far as line, and then the align value set to middle. And that'll place the caption centered near the top of the video window. So here's our title cue. It's beginning at a half a second in, continues to 5 seconds in, and it's set to 10% down as far as the line, how far down from the top it is. We're aligning it to the middle. Then we have the class, which is named title. So we've got the C is for the class tag, and then dot title, and then the actual text that's going to display is the hat rack dance, and then we have the closing class tag. In step 7B, we add a subtitle cue. That's going to begin at 5.5 seconds, and the interval is going to be 9 seconds, with the text being From Royal Wedding, 1951. It's the name of the movie and the year it was released. And we want to enclose that text in an italics tag to italicize it. We'll place it again, the line 10% down, and align it to the middle. So there's our subtitle. Begins at 5.5, interval is 9. It's 10% down from the top, aligns to the middle. And then the text From, and then italics, Royal Wedding 1951. And then 7C, we add a finish cue, and that's going to be displayed from the 1 minute 5 second mark to the 1 minute 11 second mark. And then it contains the text, See more videos at Cinema Penguin. We're going to enclose the Cinema Penguin within italics, place the caption now down towards the bottom, so it'll be 80% for the line value, and then have a position of 90% with the caption text aligned at the end. So there is the cue finish. Again, it's going to begin at 1 minute 5 seconds. It's going to end at 1 minute 11 seconds. We're positioning it vertically 80% from the top, and then positioning it horizontally 90% and aligning it to the end. The text reads, See more videos at, and then in italics, Cinema Penguin. So we'll save that file. And in step 8, after saving the changes to the VTT file, now we're going to move into the CP Media 2 CSS file. And I should just point out that the reason that we didn't test the viewing of those cues is that you can't do that locally. You're going to have to publish it to the web server before you can actually see the cues display. So if you just go into Visual Studio and you say view in the browser, you won't see the cues. So we go now into the CP_Media2 CSS file. Within the Media Styles section, we're going to insert a style rule for all of the audio and video elements that displays them as blocks with a width of 95%. We'll center both the audio and the video elements by setting the top/bottom margins to 20 pixels and the left-right margins to auto. So here we are in cpmedia2.css underneath of Media Styles. We'll have audio, video as the selectors. And then our declarations are display, block, margin, 20px space auto, and the width, 95%. Save that. In step 9, it says go to the track styles section in that CSS file and create a style rule for track cues that sets the background color to transparent, adds a black text shadow with horizontal and vertical offsets of 1 pixel and a blur value of 2 pixels, sets the text color to RGB 255-177-66, and sets the font size to 1.2 ems using the sans serif font family. So this is going underneath of track styles here. So a cue, you can see, is a pseudo element, so we need to begin that selector with : and then the word cue as the selector. And then we're setting the background color to transparent. The text shadow is black with a 1 pixel offset both vertically and horizontally, and a 2-pixel blur. The color of the text is 255 RGB 255-17766, and the font is going to be 1.2 Ms using the sans serif font family. We'll save that, and then back here to step number 10, we're going to create a style rule for the track cues that belongs to the title class. Remember that the first title that we added there had been classed as title. And that's going to set the font size to 2 Ms and the font family to serif. So we're using the same pseudo selector cue there, but then identifying that we're using the cue that we classed as title and changing its font to 2 Ms in size and the font family to serif. We'll save that, Control S. Moving on to step 11 now. After saving the changes to the style sheets, we want to open up the cp_astaire.html file in our browser. Verify, well, we actually have done this, verified that we could play the audio and the video clips. We will not be able to verify the captions as it's asking us to do there, because as I mentioned to you previously, we need to upload the files to the server for us to be able to see that, since I'm using Google Chrome. So what I'm going to do is just publish our folder real quick so we can see that. I've moved back a page in the instructions here because I forgot that step number 4, we were supposed to add the reference for this file here as a poster image for the video player. So I want to go ahead and do that now. So just back to the video after controls, we're going to go ahead and add a poster attribute here and then assign it the name of that PNG file, cp_poster.png. And we've only got a few steps left to go here in the assignment, so let's just go ahead and go through all of these before we publish again and then go view it from the web server. So we're up to step 12 now. Maxine wants us to create a transition for the links at the top of the page that enlarges the link text and moves it out and above its default position when the user hovers over it. So we're going to go into the cp_animate2 CSS file, and we're going to go underneath of the transition styles section, create a style rule for the nav ID'd as top links, and specifically the anchor selectors. And we'll be setting the text color to RGB 255-255-255, which you know is white. Add a shadow with the color of RGB A000, which is black, and then 100%. Then we'll have a horizontal offset of 1 pixel, vertical offset of -1 pixel, and a blur value of 1 pixel. And then we want to use the transform style to apply 2 functions, scale at 1, and then translate y 0 pixels. So going to the cp_animate2.css file now, and underneath of the transition styles section, we'll add the selector, which is nav #top links. So the nav element ID is top links, space A, so the anchors that are in that nav element, encapsulated by it. And then setting up the color as RGB 255, 255, 255. The text shadow is RGB A 0, 0, 0, 1 with a 1 pixel horizontal offset, a -1 pixel vertical offset, and a 1 pixel blur. And then we've got the 2 functions for the transform property there. We've got scale of 1, and translate the y0 px. And then actually we're a little bit ahead of ourselves here. This is the next instruction. So this is in step 13 here within the style rule that we created in the last step. We want to add a transition that applies to all the properties of the selected element over an interval of 1.2 seconds using linear timing. So that's how we get the animation. So we use the transition property there. We're transitioning all over the time frame of 1.2 seconds linear, which just means that the timing is consistent from the beginning to the end. You could use ease in or ease out there to affect that. Ease in, it starts out slow and then goes out quicker. Ease out, it starts out quick and slowly goes away. Or, you know, the transition itself gets slower at the end. So we're up to step 14 now. We're going to create a style rule for the nav top links a hover state. That's going to set the color to RGB 255 183.25. Set the text shadow to the color RGB A 000.5. And it'll have a horizontal offset of 0 pixels, a vertical offset of 15 pixels, and a blur of 4 pixels. And then we'll use the transform style with a scale of 2,2, the translate Y of -15 or 15, -15 px, which will double the scale of the objects and translate it -15 pixels in the vertical direction when the user hovers over the hyperlink in the menu. So there's our selector, nav, hashtag top links a : hover. So this is for the hover state whenever we hover over the anchors up in the menu. We're going to change the color, change the text shadow, and change the transform values. So essentially what you'll see is when we hover over the menu items, they get larger and kind of look like they come off of the page a bit. So we can see these changes now, so that's what they're having us do in step 15 here. Just go ahead and look at that hover. And so now we move our mouse over these anchors up here. We should see the animation effect. That all looks good. So continuing on with step 15 here, the list of Fred Astaire's films has been stored within the table that's nested within a div element that's ID'd as marquee. The table is long and Maxine wants to only display a portion of it at a time, allowing the contents of the table to automatically scroll upwards in a theater marquee style. To create this animated effect, we're going to change the top position style of the table over a specified time interval, moving the table upward through the marquee. So step 16, we're going to go back to the CP Animate 2 file, and in there now we're going to go to the marquee styles section. We'll insert a rule that places the marquee div element with relative positioning. We'll add a style rule for the table nested within the marquee div element that places the table using absolute positioning. And we won't specify any coordinates for either element. And then just jumping ahead here, we'll go to 17. We're going to go to the keyframe styles section in the style sheet, and we'll set up the animation named scroll with the following two keyframes. A will be at 0%. Set the value of the top property to 250 pixels, and then B will be at 100%. We want to set the value of the top property to -1300 pixels. So here in the marquee styles section, we're going to add those two rules. One is the div ID'd as marquee, setting its position to relative, and then the div marquee table, so that's the table that's within the div, and setting its position to absolute. Then in step 17, we want to go to the keyframe styles section of that style sheet, create an animation named scroll with the following two keyframes. We're going to have at 0%, we want to set the value of top to 250, and at 100%, we'll set the value of top to -1300 pixels. So here we're using an @keyframes rule and naming it scroll, and basically identifying percentage-wise within the hover state, because we're going to hover over this list of movies. And at the beginning, it's going to set the top then at 250 pixels, and then as it continues to scroll from 0 to 100%, it's going to move that top to eventually be to -1300 pixels. We'll save that. Step 18 now, we're going to the animation style section and applying the scroll animation to the table within the marquee div element over the duration of 50 seconds using linear timing. So again, it's just consistent timing throughout within the infinite looping. So it'll loop over and over again. So So that's going to be down here underneath of animation styles. So we're targeting again the table that's inside of the div that's ID'd as marquee, just using the animation property now. And what we're doing is we're using the scroll animation over a time period of 50 seconds, and it's linear and it loops constantly. It's infinite. Save that. One more thing to do here. Maxine wants the marquee to stop scrolling whenever the user hovers the mouse over the list of movies. And so we'll add a style rule for that div marquee hover state. So when we're hovering the marquee, we want to impact the table here. So that's what our selector is going to be, the marquee and the hover state, and then targeting the table, and that's just going to pause the animation during the hover event. So again, underneath of animation styles here, we'll go ahead and add that new rule. The selector again is the div ID'd as marquee when in the hover state, and then we're targeting the table, which is we want the animation play state to be paused at that point. So let's go ahead and save this, Control S. Let's go back to our browser, refresh the page. There you can see that under the filmography heading now, we have the list of movies, Fred Astaire movies, scrolling upward. Let me refresh that again and just notice, see how it started at 0 down at the bottom. Now it's scrolling upward, and then anytime we move our mouse over, give it a hover state, it's going to pause it. It pauses the animation. So that's basically what we're looking for here. Let's see, we need to go ahead and publish this, and then I can go over all of the elements that you need to make sure that you have working. So we'll go back here, we'll publish the RA8 folder. Okay, so here we have the page loaded from the IA web server now. You can see that our hyperlinks still have the animation applied to it and working fine. We still have the list of movies that's scrolling up. It pauses anytime we hover it. Listen up.
Every night at 7, you walk in.
And we click on the video. We can see the captions playing as the video plays. So the Hat Rack Dance, the Royal Wedding, 1951, and then if we just fast forward here, we should see the finished text. See more videos at Cinema Penguin. So that's it for this assignment. I've identified everything that I'll be grading on. Until next time, happy coding. If you liked this video, please click the like button and leave us a comment down below. I also would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are posted.